You are in a meeting presenting to the leadership team. Your slides are perfect, but mid-sentence you forget what you were going to say. You just can't remember that word for the life of you. You're sitting there, everyone's looking at you, and your brain is just not working. Finally, you recover. Find a different word and finish your presentation. At some point, you might stop and wonder, am I losing my edge? Well, it's not your personal failure. You're navigating a neurobiological transition that up to 80% of women experience. Your brain changes during the menopause transition. I'm Dr. Jura Lasas, a neurobiologist with a PhD and over 15 years in clinical research and drug development. I'm here to offer science-based guidance for professional women navigating hormonal transition without compromising performance. I've stood in plenty of meetings forgetting words I've used thousands of times. And not because English is my third language. I know what it means to be a woman who built a career on making decisions under pressure and holding a lot in her head, only to suddenly find myself second-guessing simple things, losing words mid-sentence, or feeling slower than I'm used to. The good news is, this too shall pass. Let's talk about the brain changes and symptoms you experience during perimenopause and what they mean specifically for women in leadership. A 2016 review by Mackey and Henderson published in Menopause found that around 60% of women report cognitive difficulties during the menopause transition. 60%! Other researchers report that up to 80% of women have cognitive symptoms. These are not small numbers. That's the majority of women going through perimenopause. Research consistently shows how common some of the symptoms are. Number one, most women report verbal memory problems, especially trying to find words and trying to remember names. That frustrating tip of the tongue feeling where you know the word, but you just can't remember. Number two, many women complain of attention and concentration difficulties. You might lose the thread of a conversation, reread the same email or a paragraph in a report multiple times, or feel more easily distracted than you used to. Symptom number three, working memory lapses. Holding information in your mind can take more effort, like remembering the 3 decisions you agreed to in a leadership call last week, juggling budget numbers between the 3 departments, timeline changes, or walking into a meeting and momentarily forgetting exactly why you opened your laptop. Many women group all of these symptoms under the umbrella of brain fog. But brain fog is subjective and hard to measure. Researchers prefer to look at specific symptoms instead, and they found that cognitive symptoms often show up alongside poor sleep, mood changes, higher stress, and hot flashes. Together, all of that can make your thinking feel worse than it actually is. If what I'm describing sounds familiar, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Every week, one topic, one video, peer-reviewed research that actually explains what is happening to you during perimenopause. Now, let's talk about why brain fog as a collective term for all the symptoms tends to hit high-performing women especially hard. When your baseline mental load is already high, you're running teams, you're making constant decisions, you're managing deadlines, you're carrying emotional responsibility at work, and often you're the main caregiver at home. Your brain has very little extra capacity to spare. So when efficiency drops even a little bit, it doesn't feel small. It feels massively disruptive to your professional and personal life. That's a big reason why so many women in leadership roles experience perimenopause as a personal failure instead of a biological transition. The expectations around you stay exactly the same, even while your brain is in the middle of adapting to new reality. Before we go further, I want to be very clear about one thing. Brain fog is not dementia. It's not early Alzheimer's, and it's not permanent cognitive loss. These brain changes reflect a transition phase, not permanent damage. So now, let's look at what is happening in your brain on a structural level and at a biochemical level. Brain imaging studies have shown some changes in the brain structure during perimenopause. MRI scans reveal that gray matter volume, which is composed of different brain cells, decreases in specific brain regions. This small shrinkage is partly linked to failing estrogen levels. However, some of this volume recovers after menopause when hormones stabilize. So your brain isn't deteriorating. Think of it like it's reorganizing. Functional MRI studies let us see which parts of the brain are talking to each other in real time. When researchers look at women in perimenopause and menopause, they often see changes in how certain brain regions connect. The areas that are changing are the ones responsible for executive function, language, emotional regulation, and visual memory. Here's what's important. There is no single menopause brain pattern. Some women show noticeable structural changes on scans. Others show very little. Some brains seem to adapt quickly. Others take longer to recalibrate. Your brain is not following a script. It is responding to hormonal shifts in its own way. This transition is biological, but the way it unfolds in your brain is highly individual. When scientists look at brain scans during perimenopause, they can see a clear pattern. Some scans, called PET scans, measure how efficiently the brain uses glucose, the main fuel the brain runs on. During perimenopause, certain brain areas start using less of it. The regions most affected are the ones responsible for memory and higher level thinking, like planning, organizing, and decision-making. When those areas use less glucose, it can be correlated to how well or how poorly you perform. Learning new information becomes harder. Remembering things later takes more effort. In simple terms, the brain is not using glucose as efficiently as it used to be. And when the glucose supply or use is not optimal, memory, thinking can feel slower or less reliable. What's changing here is not your intelligence or competence that you built over many years, but how efficiently your brain can access and deploy what you already know. Estrogen does not just act in the ovaries. Its receptors, which are like tiny docking stations that allow cells to respond to estrogen, are spread throughout the female brain. They are especially dense in a few key areas that control reproduction, emotions, and thinking. One of these areas is the hippocampus. This is the brain's memory center. It helps you form new memories, learn new information, and participate in recalling things. Another is the prefrontal cortex. It sits right behind your forehead and is responsible for executive function. That means decision-making, planning ahead, staying focused, organizing information, and managing impulses. Then there's the amygdala, a small almond-shaped structure that detects if things or events are emotionally important. It works closely with the hypothalamus, a deep brain region that regulates hormones and coordinates your stress response. When estrogen levels fluctuate during perimenopause, these areas I just mentioned are affected directly. And because these regions are central to memory, focus, mood, and stress regulation, changes in estrogen can show up as changes in how clearly you think, how steady you feel emotionally, and how resilient you are under pressure. Think of that range you might sometimes get. Estrogen directly influences how your neurons communicate. It helps form and maintain neuronal connections, also called synapses, as well as neurotransmitters that flow through those connections. I was very surprised when I discovered how powerfully estrogen regulates neurotransmitter synthesis, transporters, receptors, and breakdown, especially for serotonin, dopamine, glutamate, GABA, and norepinephrine, which basically tells you that estrogen is a key player in shaping mood, cognition, reward, and stress responses. No wonder sometimes we feel like a different person because fluctuating estrogen levels affect our brain in such profound ways. Now, let's look at what happens after perimenopause. Studies that track women across menopause transition show that perimenopause, when hormones are fluctuating widely and unpredictably, is when cognitive symptoms peak, not after menopause, during the transition itself. A study published in 2009 in the Journal of Neurology followed women over several years to see how their thinking skills changed across the menopause transition. The researchers found that verbal memory, meaning remembering words, and processing speed, which is how quickly you take in and respond to the information, declined the most during late perimenopause and early postmenopause. Then something interesting happened. The decline did not continue. The changes leveled off and recovered. This pattern suggests that it is not simply low estrogen that challenges the brain. It is the instability. Once hormones settle into a new baseline, the brain often stabilizes too. So you're not broken. You are in mid-transition. The research is consistent on this. Perimenopause is when cognitive symptoms peak, not after. Your brain is not in decline, it is recalibrating. And recalibration, by definition, ends. In the coming weeks, we will get specific. Why your sleep quality is the single biggest variable in how your brain performs right now. What the evidence suggests about the estrogen-dopamine connection. And what interventions are worth your time, because your time is not unlimited. You have spent years learning to read a room, manage uncertainty, and perform under pressure. You can learn this too. If this video was useful to you, press like. It helps more women who are searching for real answers actually find this channel. Subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. And if you know a woman who's quietly wondering what is happening, share this video with her.